good day everyone. So for this lecture, we're going to be talking about the phenomenological research. So the phenomenological research is actually one of the most basic forms of research and one of the most usually done by most qualitative researchers as well as other researchers coming from various fields as well. Because in the phenomenological research, it actually focuses on defining the phenomenon as a certain unity in the patterns. Coming from this display, the phenomenon itself is defined as the commonality, the existent commonality of experiences that actually may present itself from the raw data. So the commonality of experiences would originate from raw data. So, with that being said, I'd like to go back to one of my previous lectures in terms of open and actual coding as well as extracting the themes of various data. This is by far the best way to utilize open coding, actual coding, and of course how to extract the themes properly, because by far the phenomenological research, as far as I'm concerned, may present itself as the major format for qualitative researches. Why? Because it is actually an avenue for the direct comparison of raw data and of course generalizing them into certain uniform themes. So these commonalities may also be referred to as the themes. So therefore, thematic analysis might come into play when conducting the phenomenological research. So let's say for example we were presented with narratives, simple narratives coming from experiences of online classes. Online classes may be presented with questions, or the research regarding online classes may be presented with questions such as accessibility, gadgets, connectivity, and so on and so forth. So, in these themes, these are already themes themselves. Now, what may be asked in order for you to achieve those themes, given that the research topic may concern online classes, would somehow be the following. In terms of accessibility, you might actually ask students what are the major platforms that they are often using. Let's say, for example, either Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, other social media platforms and whatnot. So, in terms of accessibility, what we want to measure there is the idea on how adept or how well-versed a student can be in terms of integrating the online classes in his or her daily lifestyle. So, other than accessibility, we now go to the question on gadgets. What type of gadgets do they actually possess in order to access the online learning content? Like for example, if most students already have cell phones, most students most probably do not necessarily have laptops, and of course other supplementary gadgets such as iPads, notepads, and others like that. So tablets at most. So that being said, the range of gadgets could somehow be directly related to accessibility, because for one thing, one cannot access the learning content without necessary accessibility towards the learning content. If one does not have any gadgets to offer, if one does not necessarily possess gadgets to access the online learning content, then of course the purpose of online learning might be put into question. That's one thing. Now, let's go to the connectivity, of course. Here in the Philippines, we need to admit that there is not necessarily a stable internet connection. As much as PLDT, one of the leading internet providers here in the country, as much as PLDT would like to boast about being able to provide at most 100 Mbps internet connectivity, and of course fiber connection. At most, here in the Philippines is not necessarily experienced by most people. Therefore, internet connectivity, or of course, the quality that comes with internet connection is not necessarily uniform. The quality of internet access, the quality of internet connections are not necessarily presented with uniformity, with utmost uniformity. Why? Because there are various predicaments concerning internet access. Of course, it comes to whether the student or the family members are able to afford internet connection in the first place. So that's one thing that needs to be considered when conducting online classes. Now, all of these aspects, accessibility, gadgets, connectivity, may be thematized into a single theme that goes under the definition and pretext of efficiency. All of these questions, all of these sub-themes could somehow be unified in a certain unified and commonalized manner that may present itself generally as efficiency. Therefore, using these aspects, using these variously contexted aspects that you might have asked the students, then of course, they will actually present themselves in such a uniformity that might define the efficiency rate of online classes in various rates and then, of course, in various respects. So, by doing so, we already define what the phenomenon is. So, the phenomenon, again, going to the premise of the commonality of experiences, the phenomenon itself is actually a concept, a general concept that comes from specified fragments. I'd like to highlight the idea of specified or specific experience fragments. The specific experience fragment might present itself as various forms of data, various forms of narratives, like accessibility, gadgets, connectivity. They're not necessarily the same altogether. They are entirely different questions. They are entirely different contexts. They are entirely different situations. They are entirely different circumstances. Therefore, what we need to do with the specific experience fragments is we have to actually thematize them. We have to present opportunities for the thematization of the SFEs, or of course the specific experience fragments. We have to thematize them in order to achieve what is of course assessed as the phenomenon, which by far in this pretext would be identified as the efficiency rate of online classes. So, the phenomenological research could actually be a game of logic as well. Why? Because it actually depends on how well the researcher is able to compare significant factors with each other. Therefore, most researchers, especially student researchers, might not realize it, but most of them are actually pursuing phenomenological research. Why? Because the manner on how they handle and how they thematize various specific experience fragments, they already commit or they already conduct phenomenological research studies. So of course, this is actually a reminder to all of you to actually review your written research studies, because for one thing, you might be missing out on the realization that all this time, you are already performing and you are already conducting one of the most focal forms of qualitative research, which is by far phenomenological research. So, at the very general of it, again, to summarize, the phenomenological research presents the commonality of experiences that comes from the specific experience fragments. And all in all, it ultimately provides us with a thematized phenomenon in order for the research to expound, discuss, and further endeavor into. So, with that being said, with that being said, I would like to conclude this lecture. If this lecture has been helpful for all of you, please do not hesitate to leave a like on the video. And of course, if you think other people might actually find this video helpful, please do not hesitate to share this video to them. And of course, if you have any questions, inquiries, clarifications, and of course corrections or feedback, I would gladly respond to them, of course, through the comment section down below. So, that being said, thank you very much for attending this video lecture regarding phenomenology.